kids will make us all famous.
And so here we go again, back with another one. Welcome to the Dark Times channel. And before I get started, make sure you guys go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're not new to the channel and you enjoy the content so far on this channel, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me as well. And so let's go ahead and get into it. Today's story, or today's topic, is going to be about the movie The Blind Side.
Smile at them. It lets them know you're their friend.
And the movie The Blind Side is a story, or a so-called story, about an ex-NFL player named Michael Oher, who was a left tackle for a few different teams in the NFL, I believe, and had a really good career in the NFL. Almost every time Michael Oher suited up and every time he played, they would go into great detail about that movie. And they would make an emphasis to point out how this particular family took him from rags to riches, basically.
I think what you're doing is so great. To open up your home to him, and honey, you're changing that boy's life.
And I'm not saying none of that didn't happen, but according to this interview that I came across recently, Michael Oher paints a different picture.
Michael Oher joins us here in studio, author of the new book, When Your Back's Against the Wall. He wrote, I Beat the Odds, and you just said you feel like you've been mislabeled sometimes, misunderstood. And I think, at least from what I've read in the book, a lot of that stems from how you were portrayed in the movie The Blind Side, and that people might have the wrong idea of your personality, number one, that you were this kind of shy wallflower, that you were timid and you had to be kind of like drawn out of your shell, when in reality, you were a workaholic, you were hyper organized, and you were like, damn it, I'm making something of myself no matter what it takes after a rough background. Is that the big one that you feel you were mislabeled as?
I think it took away the hard work and the dedication that I created from a child, and going to school in the third grade, getting myself up. First one in the locker room, last one out. And I think the biggest for me is, being portrayed, not being able to read or write. Second grade, I was doing plays in front of the school. And I think that's one of the, when you go into a locker room and your teammates don't think that you can learn a playbook, that weighs heavy. You have to understand, before I moved in with the family, I was an All-American. That's what I want the generations behind me to see in this book right here, to understand that you don't have to have someone save you and rescue you to go out and be successful. You got every tool in you. And this book right here is a playbook on life.
And so just like Michael Oher said, before he even moved in with the family, he was already on pace to be a standout college player and a standout college athlete, and on pace to be a good NFL prospect. He was already on that track. And that's the total opposite of what the movie The Blind Side showed. And then on top of that, to make matters worse in that movie, they showed him as a complete idiot.
You're still not cutting it in my class.
Why does admissions do this? I mean, it's not fair to us or the boy.
Just setting him up to fail.
He has a measured IQ of 80, which is 6th percentile. His grade point average begins with 0.
School gym's closed. Why were you going to the gym?
Because it's warm.
Big Mike, why were you going to the gym? Because I was cold. I was hungry. That's that slave shit that they like. And truth be told, this whole film was on some slave play shit. And if any of you guys are familiar with the story Frankenstein, in the original play, it was actually played by a so-called black man. And the idea behind it was you had this childlike being that was larger than life and stronger than a bull, but yet he had the mind of a child. And so the movie The Blind Side, like a lot of these films are, had that Frankenstein theme to it. Just like The Green Mile.
Can you talk?
Yes, boss. I can talk. Do you leave the light on after bedtime? 'Cause I get a little scared in the dark sometimes. If it's a strange play.
But for somebody who just watched that movie and didn't know the real Michael Oher, you would think that he was a bumbling idiot and was saved and rescued by this family. Not only did Sandra Bullock's character save him from homelessness, she taught him how to play football. She was out there coaching on the field, pulling everybody by their helmets, telling Michael Oher where he needed to be, telling Michael Oher how to protect the quarterback's blind side.
You stopped it. This team is your family, Michael. You have to protect them from those guys. Are you going to protect the family, Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
Good boy.
So not only was the character portrayed by Sandra Bullock a white rescuer by getting him off the streets, she taught him how to play football. And as you can see from this interview, that couldn't be further from the truth. He was already a standout high school football player that knew and had an understanding of the game. It's something about black athletes and people within the dominant society. There's something about it. For a so-called black man being a black athlete, when you get around people within the dominant society, you might as well be a slave at an auction. And obviously, of course, it's not on that level, but the kind of idolatry that goes on by being a so-called black athlete in the presence of white people, it's insane. And being a former athlete myself, not to the level of a professional player, but being a former athlete, I can attest to a little bit of it on a small scale. All the white girls want to fuck you. All the white men act like they want to fuck you. And to this day, when I'm around white people and white men in general, I still get asked, what sport did I play? Who did you play for? In fact, I was at an event earlier this year, and this old white man comes up to me, wanted to know my name, wanted to know my last name, and what school I went to, and all that kind of shit. And I had to shut the conversation down. I had to change the subject on his ass just to see where it would go. And of course, sure enough, he didn't want to talk about anything else. It almost offended him that I didn't want to talk about sports with him. And had it been anybody else, I probably would have, but I could see where his mindset was. I could see what it was about with him. And so after hearing this interview with Michael Oher, I'm pretty sure it was the same thing with him. I'm sure the family that took him in saw dollar signs. The fact that he was already an All-American athlete lets me know everything I need to know about this family. And to make matters worse, like I said in the beginning of the video, Michael Oher is in the middle of a lawsuit because Michael Oher didn't receive a dime from the movie The Blind Side. Because instead of adopting Michael Oher, all that family did was take charge of his legal affairs. And I want to say it was similar to the Britney Spears situation, in which her father or her family was in charge of all her financial dealings up until a certain point. And so I think that was a similar situation that was going on with Michael Oher, at least while he was in college, when the movie was in production. And so Michael Oher, not only was he misrepresented in the movie, but he didn't receive a dime for it. And I hated that movie when it came out. I knew something was off about it when I saw the previews when it came out. And the fact that Sandra Bullock was in it, you know, I damn sure knew what time it was. And so it goes back to the age-old white savior. That's the only way certain people within the dominant society feel comfortable with a successful so-called black man or woman, is if there's a white savior behind it. God forbid you do it on your own. That's why people like Serena Williams and Venus Williams got the level of hate that they did, because the so-called black man and their father, Richard Williams, was 100% responsible for their success. That's why Tiger Woods got a lot of hate, especially early on, like he did, because his father was 100% responsible for their success. Same thing with the Jacksons. Joe Jackson, 100% responsible for their success. And so I think when they see a so-called black man and a so-called black family pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and doing it on their own, they can't take it. It's too much. They have to create a white savior somehow, some way, even if it's in the movies. And so this wasn't going to be a very long video, but a story I came across, and I wanted to go ahead and chime in on it real quick. But definitely drop a like for me and make sure you guys comment in the comment section. And as usual, peace and chaos.